Hey, welcome back. I'm loading into a mellow world tonight. You're here to chill. Maybe doze off. Maybe just let your brain idle for a bit. We've got calm Reddit stories with soft endings, a little relationship drama, a little wedding stuff. Nobody's screaming. Think fences getting fixed, boundaries getting set, and people realizing they're allowed to choose peace. I'll build. You breathe. Volume stays low. Pace stays slow. If you sleep, that's the goal. Okay. Pick a comfy spot. Shoulders down, jaw loose. We'll start with an engagement that's off, and somehow that's the nicest thing that happened all week. We picked a venue because the trees looked like they'd been holding hands for 100 years. Simple. Green. We liked the way the path curved, like it forgot how to be straight. Then his mom brought a binder. 8 tabs. Fabric swatches the size of playing cards. A laser pointer. She said vision, like she was launching a theme park. I blinked. He squeezed my knee under the table like, go with it, please. The color palette was snow angel plus eggplant. I asked what eggplant meant. She held the swatch to my shirt and said, not that. Cool start. The first fight wasn't a fight. It was a spreadsheet with 3 columns that looked like they were judging me. Guest list, must-haves, non-negotiables. Apparently her church group counted as family. The DJs she liked were classy because they didn't take requests. Also, she wanted the vows pre-approved, so we don't get any weird jokes about love being pizza. I do joke about pizza. Sue me. He stayed quiet and kept tracing a circle on the table with one finger. I wanted to pick up his finger and plant it somewhere brave. We tried to pick a song for the walk. I wanted something soft. He wanted something nostalgic. She wanted a string quartet because live music photographs better. I said, sound doesn't photograph. She said, mood does. She had me there, and she knew it. I laughed and then felt rude for laughing. We went home with a cake sample pack and a calendar that looked like punishment. He put the sample pack in the fridge like it was contraband. We ate 3 bites of lemon and decided we hated lemon now. Second, not fight, the venue called. She'd called them first. She asked about releasing doves, like actual birds. I pictured a dove pooping on my grandmother and had to sit down. I asked him to call her. He said, she's just excited. I said, so am I, and I'm not buying a small flock. We didn't talk for an hour. Sometimes silence feels like walking through fog. You keep moving, but your face is wet and you can't see your hands. Third, not fight, except this one had a pulse. Registry. She wanted china. I wanted a vacuum that didn't scream on rugs. He wanted nothing, because he thought asking for things was weird. She sent links. I sent question marks. He said, she's paying for half the reception. The sentence that lives in couples counseling. I felt my cheeks heat like I'd stood too close to a grill. Then marry the reception, I said, which wasn't fair, but it came out like it had been waiting with its coat on. We took a week. No wedding talk. We watched bad TV and built IKEA furniture that listed slightly to the left. We ate grilled cheese on the floor and pretended we were camping. We woke up one morning, and everything was still heavy. He said, do you still want this? I said, you? He said, yes. I said, the wedding? He stared at the ceiling like it might answer for him. I don't know, he said. There's a kind of honesty that thuds. It hurts, and it also stands up on its own. We met at a little cafe where the chairs wobble on purpose. We didn't bring the binder. We brought ourselves and 2 mugs we kept refilling like that would buy us courage. I said what I'd practiced in the shower. I want a life, not a project. I want us, not a committee. I don't want to start with a win if the cost is losing my voice. He nodded like he'd been carrying the same sentence around. Just lighter. He said, I love you. The quiet kind. I said, I love you too. The honest kind. We called it no drama, no storming out. We treated it like a surgery that saves both patients. We walked to the park. We sat on a bench that had a plaque that said, "For two stubborn hearts." We laughed because the bench was rude. He took my hand, then let it go. Not rejection, something gentler, like setting a teacup down. We hugged. His jacket smelled like laundry and winter. I felt relief move through me like warm water. And grief. Both things can travel in the same river. We returned the ring to its box, not thrown, not slammed, just closed. We agreed on the practical stuff. Split deposits. Cancel the doves before they learned our names. I went home and took off the makeup I'd put on for bravery. I sat on the floor and ate the rest of the lemon cake and decided I didn't hate lemon. I texted my mom. She texted back a heart and then, proud. I didn't know proud could fit in a text bubble. I slept like I'd been carrying a backpack for months and finally put it down. I woke up and didn't reach for a calendar. I made coffee and planned nothing. If you're crying, don't drive yet. Sit, sip water, text a friend, then go. Later, his mom called me. I let it ring twice because I needed those 2 rings. She said, "I'm sorry if I pushed." I said, "We all pushed." I thanked her for the binder, even though the binder had been an Olympic sport. She laughed, not mean. She sounded tired. She said she hoped I stayed in the family's life. I said, "In another timeline, maybe." We cried a little like adults who know that tears aren't negotiations. They're just proof you're not made of furniture. After, I opened the windows and let the air in. I made a new playlist that had no string quartet. That was cleaner than it sounds. Weirdly peaceful. I'm impressed with us. Take a breath. Sip something. Let the shoulders drop. We'll flip the page, but not loudly. My roommate's alarm used to sound like a fire drill for a spaceship. 6 a.m. every day. Not most days. Every day. It began with a cheerful trill that lied to your face and then turned into a siren that made plants reconsider existing. I edit at night. Midnight is when my brain speaks up and tries ideas on. So we lived on different planets connected by a hallway. Sometimes I'd finally fall asleep at 4 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, her watch would go off like a tiny cop. It started civil. A note on the fridge that said, "Alarm volume," with a smiley that looked exhausted. She scribbled back, "Training run at 6:15, sorry," with a drawing of a shoe that looked like it wanted to apologize too. We tried cheap fixes. I put a towel at the bottom of my door. She moved her phone to her pillow instead of the nightstand. We both believed in small magic. Small magic did nothing. The alarm learned how to climb towels. We held a summit in the living room at noon when both of us were awake and vaguely human. She brought a calendar, and I brought coffee that was doing its best. We agreed on rules like diplomats. She'd switch to a buzz-only watch for weekdays and keep her phone alarm off. I'd switch my late-night keyboard for a Bluetooth one in the living room after 10. We downloaded the same white noise app and synced the Rain in a Tin Roof Town at the lowest volume we could hear. We fist bumped like we'd signed a treaty. First week, we messed up twice. She forgot to charge the watch. I left a browser autoplay on, and a video ad saying at 1 a.m. we didn't scream. We texted, "My bad," and used the nuclear option, couch night. She bought earplugs that looked like tiny purple comets. I bought foam tape and put it around my door like a craft fail. Every morning we reported in at the sink like a tiny army. Sleep? Some. You? More than yesterday. Wins are wins. We celebrated with toast. We got bold. We decided to soundproof the bedroom wall like 2 raccoons with a coupon. We bought egg crate foam and sticky strips. We argued about patterns for fun. We stuck the foam up, and it looked like we'd padded the room for a toddler with a lot of ideas. It actually helped. Not magic. 10%. Enough to feel like the universe winked. We stacked a bookcase against the thinnest part of the wall and filled it with the heaviest books we owned. War and Peace got to be useful twice. She tried running at 6:20 instead of 6 o'clock. 20 minutes. It changed my life. I learned I could dream again. My dreams came back like they were shy. We shared a headphones hook in the hallway, so whichever of us needed quiet could just hang a pair there like a flag. No conversation needed. Just, hey, volume down world. We cooked at weird hours and left the bigger half, on purpose. She wrote for the night owl on foil. I wrote for the sunrise gremlin on Tupperware and drew little sun rays that looked like noodles. A month in, we were annoyingly proud of ourselves. The buzz alarm worked. The white noise worked. My living room keyboard was fine. I discovered I liked typing with a blanket over my legs like a grandma hacker. She discovered the joy of stretching in the bathroom at 6:10 with the door shut and her watch counting softly. The apartment learned to exhale. Our plants perked up. The hallway stopped feeling like a warpath. One morning, I woke at 6 o'clock anyway. Habit is weird. I watched the ceiling and listened. The buzz came, soft as a bee trying to be polite. I smiled into my pillow like I'd won a long game nobody else knew about. She texted me a picture of the sunrise from the corner where the sky clears between two buildings. It looked like a peach had been very dramatic. I sent back a picture of my coffee mug and the blanket and said, "Team attach." Delirious, yes. Accurate, also, yes. We hit a big test when her sister visited. Guest air mattress. Different schedules collided like two shopping carts that meant well. The first night, the watch volume got bumped. 6 o'clock went full siren. I sat up like a cartoon ghost. I almost said something with teeth. I didn't. I texted, "Volume got bumped. We're okay." She wrote back a row of skull emojis and then fixed "I owe you pancakes." A promise like that neutralizes many crimes. I went back to sleep and dreamt about swimming in maple syrup, which we do not have to unpack. We learned to apologize fast and specifically. Sorry for the 117 fridge door slam. Hit different from sorry if you heard a noise. Honestly, it turned our whole house kinder. You start labeling the small stuff, and the big stuff learns how to behave. We started leaving each other notes that were purely ridiculous. Permit granted for midnight cereal. Authorized 6:18 stretch. We became bureaucrats of peace, and I recommend it. Bonus perk. We never lived in terror of waking up to a "we need to talk" because we were already always talking, but about things that could be fixed. When I think about it now, I don't think about alarms. I think about the day she left me a banana with a sticky note that said, "Sleep tax refund." I think about the time we watched a rainstorm from opposite ends of the couch because we didn't have the energy to meet in the middle, and that was fine. I think about being on the same team against noise, not each other, which is kind of the whole description of growing up. That's enough for the morning crew. Stretch, blink slow, little shoulder roll. Let's swap scenes without waking the neighbors. Fresh story loading. My friend asked me to film their wedding as my gift. Not grab a few moments. Not, "Can you take a quick clip?" The entire wedding. 8 hours. Multiple locations. 2 cameras if possible. A drone if I had one. I do not own a drone. I own a shaky tripod with a personality. They sent a text with a smiley that did not pay invoices. I stared at it the way you stare at a puzzle that spells out, "This is a bad idea." I edit for work. I love storytelling. I don't love doing it for free while wearing formal shoes. I asked them to hop on a call so my no wouldn't sound like a smoke bomb. They said, "Of course, but we thought you'd be excited." I said, "I'm excited to be there." In a chair, eating things. They laughed, which was either a good sign or a nervous system misfire. I made tea. I do that when I'm about to be polite in hard mode. The call started with the list. Aisle shots. Vows. Parents' reactions. Wide angle of the kiss. Crowd cutaways. Audio capture for speeches. Montage of getting ready. Rings detail. Shoes detail. Grandparents holding hands. Flower girl chaos, but in a charming way. last dance, exit, and a second day, edit, if possible, to show at the brunch. I listened like a doctor listening to someone describe a surgery they saw on TV once. I said gently that this is a full production. They said, "We know, but you're talented." Compliment boomerangs are cute, but they don't become gear. I told them my rate, not the full studio rate I'd charge a stranger. The friends and family, I like you rate. I put it out there like a small bird wearing a sign that said, "Please don't kick me." They said, "We were thinking 0." They meant well. I could see them in my head, biting their lip, like maybe their charm would pay the editor. I said I wanted to attend. I wanted to cry during the vows and clap offbeat and take bad disposable camera photos that make everyone look like they're in a movie about youth. I didn't want to be the person shushing joy, so I could capture joy. Both roles are fine. I just didn't want both. They paused. The space between our sentences felt like a high dive. I filled it with honesty I'd practiced on walks. I said I can't do it as a gift because it wouldn't be a gift. It would be work disguised as wrapping paper. I offered options. I could film one moment they picked. I could help them find a small team. I could check contracts. I could make a sweet 1-minute highlight after the pro team delivered their footage, if they wanted something with my pockets in it. Boundaries sound better when you hand them flowers. They said, "We don't have budget." I said, "You do. You just gave it to the flower arch." Not snarky, clinical. They laughed, then groaned, then said, "We did, didn't we?" We talked about the arch like it had sentience. I sent them 2 names of people who shoot weddings without making you feel like you work there. I told them to ask those people about audio, because bad audio murders wedding films, and you never realize it until the vows sound like they're underwater. I told them to ask for 2 cameras, even if the second one is a potato, because vows are a one-take situation, and nobody wants a zoom cut when a tear happens. They hired one of the names, not the most expensive, not the cheapest. Someone who said, "I'll be a shadow," and actually meant it. I bought a card that didn't rhyme. I bought a disposable camera and decorated it with a sticker that said, "My cinematography degree." I wore comfortable shoes and cried 3 times because I am weak for parents hugging their kids when they think nobody is looking. I danced badly because people who film for a living often forget to be in pictures. I tried not to. I failed exactly twice and then pulled myself back into the frame. During the speeches, the mic cut out and the videographer slid in a backup like they were defusing a bomb in a rom-com. I did not have to perform surgery in a cocktail dress. I drank a little water and watched the sky go pink, like it had RSVP'd too. The couple looked happy. Like, happy that doesn't need photos to prove it. I took 3 shots on my tiny camera. 1 was the cake, and 2 were people's shoes, because I am easily distracted by a good boot. Later, they sent me a picture where I was in the background, laughing with my head tilted back, and I looked like someone who got to be present. I saved it. I printed it. I stuck it to the wall with tape like a teenager. After the wedding, my friend texted, "We get it now. You want love to be witnessed by people who are actually there, not just tools holding glass. And you want the tools to be fairly paid. Both." The video came out beautiful because someone was focused and hydrated, and not also trying to be a guest. I sent the videographer a tip because I was in a tipping mood, and because that backup mic moment haunted me in a good way. I made a 1-minute highlight for their anniversary with the pro footage they shared, and I layered in the clinks of glasses, and the squeak of shoes, and the sound of someone laughing so hard they cackled. It felt like cooking with someone else's perfect groceries. We're still friends. Stronger, probably. Boundaries didn't set us on fire. They set the napkins down where they belong. People pretend it's dramatic to say no. Sometimes, no is the boring hero of the story. The one who checks the batteries and packs snacks and makes sure you get to dance at your friend's wedding. I love boring heroes. I want a cape that says, "No thank you," and a sidekick named Healthy Choice. That's the stack for now. Drop the shoulders again, like you're setting down grocery bags. Tiny breath in, slower breath out. Torch goes back on the wall. Music stays soft. If your eyes are heavy, let them be. If you're wide awake, hi me too sometimes. Save point reached, moving quietly to the next chunk when you are. The stairs in our building sounded like a drumline with commitment. Every heel, every boot, every sneaker with a complicated soul. It all boomed like we lived inside a giant wooden guitar. I learned the rhythms of strangers by accident. 6 a.m. runner with fast angry steps. 8 a.m. loafers. Man who drags one foot like he's arguing with Tuesday. Midnight heels that don't mean to be a threat, but announce themselves like royalty. I started timing my audiobook chapters to the creaks. Chapter 12. That's the third floor jogger doing a late laundry bounce. My brain made a playlist I didn't ask for. I put up a tiny note on the lobby corkboard with tape that was clearly too weak. Anyone else hear the stair thunder? I've got felt pads. I drew a smiley that looked like it wanted a nap. 20 minutes later, someone slid a sticky under my door with a doodle of a staircase wearing earmuffs. Apartment 2. C. I knocked. 2C answered with a toolbox and a cat that had the soul of a retired sea captain. Pizza, he said, pointing to the cat, like that explained everything. It did. We started with the obvious, felt pads on the undersides of the stair noses. I had a stack that looked like chocolate coins, and he had a measuring tape he trusted like a best friend. The first step felt like a science experiment you could pass in kindergarten. Peel, stick, press. The squeak changed. Not gone, softened. The sound was now less haunted barn and more library ladder. Progress. We went up the flight together, two weird heroes of peace, gaining confidence as our sticker pile shrank. Then, the building manager appeared, drawn by the spell of two tenants acting like workers. You can't replace anything permanent, he said with the rhythm of a man who has said that sentence before. We're not, I said. We're accessorizing gravity. He rubbed his forehead like he was allergic to metaphors and watched us for a full 30 seconds. If anyone complains, he said, I didn't see you. Perfect. We became officially unofficial. The best status. We took a break on the landing. Pizza sat in a sun square and blinked like we were underqualified, but trying. I opened my phone to a decibel meter app, because I am that person. Before pads, 74 dB on a heel strike. After pads, 66 dB. Not exact science. Science vibes. I cheered like we'd won a tiny championship that nobody would frame. 2C said, we can go bolder. We went bolder. We posted another note. Stair quiet hour experiment. 7-9 p.m. Bring one pair of ridiculous shoes for testing. The building is 50% students, 30% sleep-deprived professionals, 20% people who know more than both groups combined. They came. Crocs with charms. Stilettos that looked like weapons from a fantasy show. Slippers that could be used as boats in a pinch. We lined up like we were launching a sneaker museum and took turns walking 2 steps each while someone filmed and someone else clapped exactly once at the end, like golf. We figured out the villains. Hard plastic heels and boots with a hollow heel cup. The heroes were boring. Rubber, sneakers, anything with a soul. Yes, soul. We made a poster for the stairwell. Hard heels, party downstairs only. Rubber friends, welcome anytime. I drew a cartoon boot with a speech bubble saying, shh. 2C added a QR code that led to a playlist of soft footstep ASMR because he is the kind of neighbor who brings extras to a potluck. The QR code worked, and it made people laugh, which did half the work for us. Then someone on the 3rd floor dragged a suitcase down at 1 a.m. because life happens, and flights at 5 a.m. are a curse from a travel god with beef. The suitcase wheels screamed. The felt pads begged for backup. We built the backup. Carpet runner strips. Cheap, cheerful. Taped down like we were gift wrapping the whole staircase. Not the full length, just the middle where the weight hits. It looked homemade. It was. But the first rolling test sounded like rain instead of thunder. The stairwell exhaled. I swear even the walls went thank you. Pizza tried the runner and decided it was his. He did 5 laps, meowed once, and sat on the landing like the foreman had approved the job. More neighbors joined the mission. Someone brought leftover rug underlay. Someone else had those foam squares you put in a home gym when you're trying to be a better person for 3 weeks. We cut them into neat strips and slotted them where wood met wall. Each tiny fix shaved off a sliver of noise until the stairs were no longer a character in our lives. They were background. We didn't stop at the hardware. We got cultural. The 6 a.m. runner left a note that said, "Switching to the back exit before sunrise. Sorry for the old chaos." The midnight heels started carrying flats down to the lobby and changing there like spies. The loafers guy stopped dragging the loafers, which felt like a miracle, performed with 0 religious paperwork. We put a little basket by the first step with 2 pairs of clean socks and a sign, "Emergency soft feet." People used them. Nobody stole them. Somehow, the socks returned with different patterns, like the basket had become a sock exchange where peace was the currency. The manager, who had not seen us, gave a thumbs up one morning as he walked past. I don't think he knew his thumb had betrayed him. He said, "Residents are happier," to the air. The air agreed. We took a victory lap by listening to nothing. It was a beautiful concert. I drank tea on my couch, and for the first time in months, the footsteps above were muffled whispers instead of exclamation points. I didn't realize how much my brain had been flinching all day until it stopped. And then, because every system gets tested, the band kid on floor 4 decided to practice snare rudiments on the landing. I caught him mid-flam. He froze like I'd caught him stealing the moon. We struck a deal. Landing practice during daylight only, and he'd teach Pizza to high-five with a drumstick. 2 weeks later, Pizza high-fived for treats, and the rudiments moved to a practice pad. My building turned into a sitcom where the laugh track is just a polite cough and a kettle whistle. You know that relief that hums, not blasts? That's what it felt like when I realized I'd fallen asleep during a movie and woken up to the credit music instead of the sudden metallic scream of someone's boots. The stairs learned manners. We learned we could fix things without a committee meeting where a person with a clipboard says the word policy 6 times. We did it with tape and notes and tiny jokes and a cat who believes in us. That ended gentler than it started, which is my favorite kind of ending. We dim the lights in the stairwell and let the building sleep like a person. Give your neck a roll, grab a sip, slide into the next bit when your brain says, go. The office fridge was a cold war. Capital C, capital W. Lunches vanished like magic tricks performed by hungry ghosts. Yogurts migrated. Leftovers suffered mysterious bites and returned to their containers like they'd seen things they couldn't unsee. I labeled my stuff with my name and a doodle of a sword because I thought that would scare people with a sense of humor. It did not. Someone ate the top half of my parfait and put the lid back on like a hat on a crime. The first accusation meeting was not official. It happened by the fridge when 4 of us opened the door and stared at the chaos like it had wronged our ancestors. Somebody said, "We need cameras," like we worked in national security and not marketing plus sales. Plus one guy who writes code and never blinks. I said, "We need a system." People rolled their eyes because systems sound like homework. But the alternative was becoming fridge cops, and nobody wanted to interrogate a coworker about the service. I made a chart on a whiteboard because I am at peace with being that person. Monday to Friday columns. Shelves labeled by weekday instead of department. If you bring food for Tuesday, it goes on Tuesday. Leftovers get a day 2 grace period, and then move to a small bin labeled free eats, no questions. I drew a smiling sandwich with arms and legal documentation. We added a house snacks shelf, funded by the snack budget that definitely existed in a nebulous spreadsheet, and actually existed because we put 10 euros in a jar. Snack UN. Mutual disarmament. We printed labels. We tested markers that wouldn't wipe off when condensation did its weird sweaty thing. We added a tiny bell on the fridge door so we could hear if someone left it open like a cave mouth. The bell sounded like a polite fairy asking if you'd been raised by wolves. It worked. People started closing the door all the way, like we'd rediscovered civilization. Week 1, there was a relapse. A yogurt vanished from Thursday, which felt like a crime against the brand new Constitution. I wrote a note that said, if you're hungry, take from the free bin. If you're confused, label. If you're hangry, I get it. And you can tell me so I can stuff crackers into your hand like a raccoon. I taped the note at eye level inside the fridge, so it was a message from the cold gods. The yogurt stopped walking. A few days later, a mysterious six-pack of yogurts appeared in the free bin like a guilty conscience had gone grocery shopping. We went extra. I drew a fridge map that looked like a treasure hunt. X marks the hummus. People started decorating their Tupperware like their kids' lunchboxes. Bees, dinosaurs, name tags with glitter. It looked like a preschool had merged with a co-working space, and I loved it. The developer who never blinks set up a Raspberry Pi that track door opens just for fun. He didn't point any fingers. He just told us that the most active time was 2:53 p.m., which led to the creation of Snack O'Clock, also known as stand up and stretch before you turn into a fossil. And because humans need rituals to feel like things matter, we invented Fridge Court, not Real Court, a weekly 5-minute stand-up where we did 3 things. Praise whoever cleaned the microwave, announce expiring items, and vote on the good citizen of the fridge. The prize was a sticker on the whiteboard and first pick from the Friday food. On the first day of Fridge Court, someone banged a spoon on a mug and yelled, "Order," and then immediately apologized because we're not actually chaos goblins. The drama we avoided by doing this could fill a novel. No whisper campaigns. No passive-aggressive labels like, if you're reading this, you're a thief. No emails with reply all spirals. The jar funded good things. Fresh fruit on Mondays. Emergency ramen on Wednesdays. And once, a block of cheese, so beautiful, we gave it a name. Bruno. We did talk about Bruno. We ate Bruno as a team, like a victory. One afternoon, the CEO opened the fridge, stared at the whiteboard, and laughed. Not mean. The laugh of someone who expected to find war and found municipal services instead. She said, "Who did this?" I said, "Collective yearning for order." She said, "Keep the jar, I'll add to it." And she did. Crisp bills in a mason jar like we were running a lemonade stand for adults who make decks. I caught the former yogurt bandit once. Or maybe I caught a person who used to be, is the better phrase. They hesitated at the free bin, hand hovering. I said, "Take 2. We have more." They said, "I was the one who took yours that time." I said, "Cool. You bought 6 later?" They nodded. We high-fived. Not absolution, just a small, goofy human moment where a mistake turned into a system improvement. I do not need to be judge, jury, and snack executioner. I need my lunch at noon, and peace at 2, and sometimes a free cookie. And yeah, we printed a tiny fridge UN charter and put it in a sleeve on the side. No shaming, label clearly. Free bin on Friday is a blessing, not a trap. Clean spills you make. Clean spills you didn't make if it takes 2 seconds. Re-gift random leftovers like you're Santa for the hungry. I added snack heist confessional box as a joke. Someone drew a tiny booth with curtains. We got confessions like, "Sorry for the salsa incident. I repent with chips." And then a bag of chips appeared, like someone got what rituals are for. Now the fridge hums and we hum with it. The bell rings soft. The door closes gentle. Nobody hates anyone over soup. My yogurt does not lead a second life as a mystery. This is boring news. Boring news is the best kind. Boring news means nothing is on fire, and people get to do their jobs and go home and not dream about someone eating their named pasta like their name was a garnish. That landed exactly where I hoped it would. More order, less drama, better snacks. We wiped the whiteboard clean with one slow circle and set a timer for snack o'clock like it's a prayer. Change scenes with me. No rush, no clatter. Just a soft click into the next lane. It was a sunny park day, and my dog was shaped like joy in a fursuit. Name's Pickle. Because he's green? No. Because he makes the same face every time I say pickle, and it's the face of a creature discovering he owns his own eyebrows. We were doing the normal loop. Sniff a patch of grass like it posted something controversial, greet a squirrel like it's a celebrity, drink water like we're in a commercial. Then, a parent approached with a toddler who looked like a gummy bear. Learn to walk. The parent said my dog's name was a bit much for little ears. I looked at Pickle, who was trying to telepathically convince me a stick was a stock option. Pickle, I said, in case I'd blacked out and named him something wild. The parent said, we're trying to teach gentle words. He keeps repeating everything. Would you consider renaming him? I considered teleporting. I said, he's been Pickle since he was a potato. I smiled because I have manners, and because this conversation, while ridiculous, had the flavor of someone truly trying for their kid, even if their method was experimental. They tried it right then. Hello, Sparkles, they said to my dog, testing out a new reality. Pickle blinked. Pickle is many things. Pickle is not Sparkles. He looked at me with the confidence of a dog who knows exactly who he is and has the brand recognition to prove it. I said, hi, Sparkles, just to see what would happen. Nothing happened. The toddler said, Pickle, and clapped. Pickle wagged like he'd won a small election. Group chat time. Our park has a chat because communities think they need email lists, and what they actually need is fewer emails and a chaos cord. I posted, parent asked if I'd rename Pickle for language reasons. I'm new to this subculture. Advice? The replies ranged from WTF to LOL no to one person who said, I renamed my cat at 12 and he was fine. Which is not the same thing, but I saluted the spirit. Someone suggested a compromise. Teach the kid to say, hello, Pickle, like he's greeting a small mayor, and make the interaction into a script that's safe and predictable. Predictable is toddler gold. We ran the drill. I knelt. Toddler knelt. Parent hovered. The way parents hover when their heart lives in a tiny person and a dog is a wild card. I put out my hand and said, can you show me your best friendly wave? The kid waved like he was doing it underwater. I said, nice. Now say, hello, Pickle. He said it with 11 extra Ks. Pickle looked at me because he knows his brand. I gave him a treat for name recognition because we keep training casual. The parent watched as if waiting for my dog to turn into a swear word. He didn't. He turned into a sit. Then we talked. Actual words. Adult to adult. I said I get the impulse to control the universe for your kid because the universe is weird and loud and full of edges. I said renaming other beings isn't the lever that makes that happen. I offered options. We could keep distance. We could do set phrases. I could teach Pickle touch so he boops a palm, and then we depart with a little ceremony that ends clean. We taught the boop. The toddler squealed. Pickle accepted the role of honorary parade marshal. Someone in the chat suggested we vote on names like a joke. Someone else made a poll for real, because democracy is a disease we can't stop catching. The options were Pickle, Mr. Pickle, Sir Pickleton, Sparkles, and Your Majesty the Green Bean. Pickle won with a landslide because the internet rewards commitment. The parent posted a heart and wrote, "We'll practice respectful greetings." I wrote, "I'll practice not laughing," and then put my phone down and laughed into my elbow like a teenager. But I kept thinking about it, because bold asks teach you about people. I figured out the part that felt off. It was the act of trying to overwrite someone else's yes with your own yes, even if your yes is for a tiny human learning how to be. You can do that with your own zone, not other people's zones. I've made that mistake in other shapes. I've tried to rename someone's schedule with my needs. It never works. I texted the parent later and said, "I get that you're in the trenches. If you ever need a quiet corner, the north bench is usually empty, and I'll give you space to practice words without an audience." They responded with 6 crying laughing emojis, and a thank you for being nice about this, even though it was wild. 2 weeks later, the kid saw us across the path and shouted, "Hello, Pickle," with the triumph of a man finishing a marathon. Pickle wagged so hard, he knocked his own butt sideways. The parents saluted. We completed the boop ceremony. Pickle got a treat. The kid got a sticker from me that said "Dog Friend," with a drawing that looked like a potato with legs. We went home with that good feeling you get when a weird moment turns into a story that ends with everyone intact. And because I promised bold, we threw a birthday party at the park for Pickle and 3 other dogs born in the same month, because someone in the chat tracked that, like a librarian. Chaos. We made tiny hats. We gave the toddler a job. Official hat, hander outer. No sugar, no chaos, just dogs and hats, and adults trying to make a triangle banner that didn't fall down. The parent brought cut fruit and apologized for the name thing again in that way where you try not to bring it up, but your eyes are doing the thing. I said, "It gave us the hat job, so I'm pro-conflict now." We shared a bench and watched joy be stupid and pure for 20 minutes. We never renamed the dog. We renamed the moment. That's the magic. The same ingredients, different recipe. Pickle remains Pickle. The toddler now calls every dog Sir for a second, and then remembers names like his brain is making a little library. The parent looks less tired when we wave. I look less defensive when someone says, "Can we try it this way?" I think that's adulthood sneaking up on me. Not a glow up. More like I'm sanding one sharp corner off my day, so nobody bleeds. That floated to the right place. Light. Friendly. Everybody okay? Let your face unclench. You can blink slow here. If you're drifting, I'll hold the track with rain and low notes. If you're awake, we'll walk the next loop when your brain taps the glass and says, "Ready." The first week the new mailman learned our building, we all learned how tiny our apartment numbers were. Nobody could see 3B without squinting like they were trying to read the future. Envelopes went on adventures. A package meant for 4. A took a nap on my doormat like it had climbed the wrong mountain. I knocked on 4A with the package balanced on my hip and a smile like, "I swear I'm not a porch pirate." The door opened to a guy in pajama pants with a plant in his arms. "Is that my blender?" he asked, thrilled like he'd reunited with a long-lost sibling. I said yes. We shook hands like we'd both solved a case. Next day, I got a postcard from somewhere warm with a beach on it and handwriting like the ocean wrote it. Not mine. It said, "We saw a turtle and thought of you. I don't know anyone with that level of turtle intimacy. I put on shoes and started the tour. 3A, a grandma with the sharpest eyebrows, not hers. 3C, a girl with eyeliner and a laugh like a soda can opening, not hers. 3B, success. A couple in matching socks screamed turtle postcard, like they'd been waiting to be found. We three performed a tiny dance in the doorway that felt like a spell for better luck. Night 3, there was a stack of stuff under the brass mailboxes that looked like a junk altar. Catalogs, envelopes for units that don't exist, a mysterious magazine about model trains. I drew a quick sign and taped it to a basket. Misfits put wrong mail here. Take yours. Be cool. Then, I put the basket on the little radiator ledge and whispered, "You are the hope of the lobby." Within 2 days, Misfits had a following. People started adding a sticky note with arrows and jokes. 3B's mail, 3B's vibe. 2C's pizza coupons because destiny. The mailman laughed so hard he had to lean on the wall. "Y'all made a post office," he said, and left us a smiley face on the next stack like a stamp. We went legit. I found a cheap metal sorter at the thrift store. It had 12 slots like it had been waiting to be useful again. My upstairs neighbor brought a label maker that purred when you pressed the button. We made labels for each unit, and then a big one that said, "Lost and Found Friends." Someone put a jar of pens next to it. The jar said, "Borrow me, I dare you," which is aggressive for a jar, but it worked. The lobby transformed from where packages go to scream to cozy bureaucratic corner. The plants by the window started looking smug. Then came the envelope that changed the plot. It was addressed to Mystery Shack, St. 100, which we do not have. Inside, a handwritten letter in careful looping lines to Dear Neighbor, asking if the banging pipes at 7 a.m. were normal and apologizing if they weren't. Old paper. Real ink. Someone in this building still writes letters because their soul is an antique bookstore. I wanted to deliver it with a trumpet. I settled for knocking on doors again, like a town crier with sneakers. 5A opened, surprised. "You found it?" she asked, like I'd returned a piece of her week. We talked on the landing about pipes and mornings, and how nice it is when people apologize without needing to be right. I went back down and put a little sign on the sorter. "Letters live here too." We hit a wave. The Misfits basket became a message. A neighbor left a recipe card that said, "For whoever keeps getting my food messages and sighing at them. Try this." There was a doodle of a pot and 3 stars. I made the soup. It slapped. I left a note that said, "It slapped. Thank you, Mystery Chef." Mystery Chef responded with a heart drawn like it had teeth. We invented pen pal energy without asking the internet's permission. Because I can't help myself, I made stamps. Little sticker drawings. A cat stamp for pizza, because pizza is the building mascot, whether he knows it or not. A plant stamp for 4A, because Blender Guy turned out to be Jungle Guy. A lightning bolt for the developer on 4, who stares at code and occasionally mutters, "Ha," like he's caught God making a typo. We started stamping misdirected mail when we redelivered it, just for joy. Mailbox heroics. But cute. There were hiccups. One day, an official letter slid into the Misfits basket, and the room chilled by 3 degrees because we all know official letters carry boss energy. We resisted reading it because we like freedom and laws. I left it in the urgent slot and wrote 3E official vibes. Later that night, 3E left a thank you on the board and a bag of candies labeled Postal Appreciation Treats. The candies vanished like snow in a hot pan, and someone refilled them because we were now a self-healing ecosystem. The wildest thing we found was a stack of old postcards bundled with ribbon in the back of the sorter behind everything else, like a secret had been taking a nap. Different years, same looped handwriting, same 2 names, stamped and sent from all over, then returned here by mistake or fate. Every card ended with the same line. "I hope your door opens to something good." We passed them around with clean hands and the kind of care you use for a baby or a dry leaf you're saving. We left a note. If these are yours, they're home. 2 days later, an older guy from 2D took them, pressed them to his chest, and said, "She writes like she's painting," and smiled like a museum. He left a thank you letter on real paper. We framed the letter with washi tape like we were a zine. Halfway through the month, the mailman brought a small cart with a bell on it and announced, "Mail Parade." He pushed it down the hall, real slow, while we clapped like we'd paid for tickets. He'd put little paper flags in it for each floor. He let a kid from 1B ring the bell twice at the elevator, like the world was just and pure. He told us he'd asked his route manager if he could spend an extra 2 minutes here, because they're building something weird, but it's working. Extra 2 minutes approved. We put a gold star on the sorter with his name on it, and the day of the parade like it was a national holiday. The sorter started catching more than envelopes. Party invites, complaints, solutions. Who owns the red bike that squeaks? I can oil the chain. Does anyone want free basil? My plant is a tree now. A Polaroid of a sunset, the color of candy put there by someone who wanted to share sky. A tiny poem written on a receipt. You live here too. I forget less when I remember you. I wrote one back. Same. Poetry drove through our lobby in a clown car, and instead of rolling our eyes, we made a ring. And yeah, the bold moment. We had a lobby mail fair. A Saturday afternoon with lemonade in paper cups and a table for stamp drawings, and a box where you could write a compliment to a stranger, and we'd sort it like Valentine's, but for a building. No names required. Some were silly. To the person who waters the ficus, like it's your job, it shows. Some made people cry in a slow, nice way. To the footstep I hear above me at 7:10, I picture you stretching, and it motivates me to stop being a burrito. We wore little paper hats that said postal on them, because when you're in, you commit. One guy tried to turn the sorter into a flyer rack for his crypto Zoom. No, I pulled the flyers and left a note. No pyramid schemes in the post office, even if the graphics are fire. He wrote fair and gave us a tray of brownies like he'd paid a fine in sugar. We stapled one flyer to the side with a big X across it and a caption, "Remember when." The sorter does history now. The best day was done. I came home and saw an envelope addressed to me in my own drawer with a stamp I recognized. Inside, a letter from my future self in pencil. Hi, it's you. I'm happy you made the basket. Today you stood up straight twice. Keep the tea bags by the kettle this time. You always regret it when you forget. It was obviously my neighbor's handwriting pretending, but it didn't matter. I made tea and stood up straight, and the next morning I wrote someone else a letter in my best pretend handwriting. You're doing better than you think, I wrote. We are such simple machines. Mail us a hope and we wake up. This turned into a little town. We see each other in the hall, and instead of pretending we're invisible, we say, "You got my magazine," or "I love the soup recipe," or "Your compliment absolutely karate chopped my bad news." The mail isn't just paper anymore. It's a tiny river of proof that we exist to each other. The Misfits basket still catches strays. Sometimes there's a coupon for oil changes that none of us need, and we all pass it by. Sometimes there's a letter that needs to go back to sender, and we do that without making it into a saga. Most days, it's ordinary envelopes and an emoji drawn in pen on the corner to say, "This arrived with a smile," that landed soft and wild at the same time. Cozy chaos, 0 casualties, 10 out of 10 would sort again. Close the mailbox, shake out the hands. When you're ready, we'll step outside to the world with sky on it. The fence between our yards hadn't made up its mind about standing. It leaned like it had opinions. Some boards bowed as if they were trying to see the grass on our side. The nails had become historical artifacts. On windy nights, the slats knocked each other like they were at a tiny concert. I thought about propping it up with pure optimism. My neighbor thought about filing a formal complaint to the universe. We met in the middle. I knocked on their door, holding two options on paper like a game show. Option A: split the cost now. New fence, easy. Option B: I brace it for free now. We replace in spring when money exists. They looked at the paper like it had a personality. I like spring money, they said. Same. Step 1 was goofy engineering. I grabbed scrap 2x4S and built braces like crutches for a tall, dramatic friend. We dug tiny holes and set the braces at an angle like we were teaching the fence to ski. The wind pushed, the braces held. We high-fived with gloves on, which is less satisfying, but looks cooler. The fence looked relieved. Fences should not have moods, and yet ours did. It had been clenching. Now it didn't. Phase 2. Diplomacy. The property line on the old plot map looked like someone drew it after 3 coffees. The tape measure told another story. Google Maps told a third. We could have escalated into a saga. We didn't. We put down a string line, took a breath, and then decided to not be lawyery about it. Call it 50/50ths, my neighbor said, even though the string line leaned toward me. Call it team yard, I said, even though my brain loves being right. The surrender tasted like mint. We made a tiny sign for the brace that said team fence, because once you name a thing, you stop throwing rocks at it. We grilled while the concrete set on the new posts. Yes, that day, I dressed like a home improvement show guest star. Yes, I wore a hat that scared the sun. The neighbor chopped onions with the seriousness of a surgeon. We talked about everything except fences, music, the lemon tree their grandma owned, how they once lost a shoe in wet cement when they were 5, and had to run home with one foot sounding like a drum. The smoke smelled like summer, even though the calendar refused to cooperate. The fence watched us like a bouncer deciding we were fine. What if we put a planter right on the line? I said, pointing to the maybe border. Shared custody herbs. The neighbor's eyes lit up, like I'd said free puppies. They brought out 2 beat-up trough planters from the garage, and we scrubbed them like boats. We filled them with dirt that had a life of its own. We tucked in basil, thyme, and an aggressively hopeful tomato. We wrote a schedule on a sticky. Odd days them. Even days me. We stuck the sticky to the fence, which made me feel like I was leaving a note on a friend's locker. Day 3. The bees discovered us. Tiny striped inspectors hovered and approved. We planted marigolds as border guards because marigolds are the blunt instruments of flower peace. The neighbor made a sign on a paint stir that said, "Bee Buffet," with an arrow. I wanted to marry that sign a little bit. Then someone, of course, tried to harsh the vibe. The guy 2 houses down took his measuring tape for a walk and announced that our planter was in the liminal zone. I said, I love that band. He did not laugh. He said, technically, which is the worst word in the world when wielded incorrectly. I said, practically, we're happy. He said, that's not binding. I said, neither are your shoelaces, but here we are. He left muttering. We watered the marigolds and high-fived the air. Some people look at small joy and try to audit it. We locked our joy in with the trellis instead. Bolder move, we built an arch. Nothing wild, just 2 posts and a curve at the top made from bent wood that creaked like it was telling a joke. We trained a vine up each side, one on mine, one on theirs, and decided that when they met at the top, we would name it a bridge. We hung a wind chime from the center that sounded like a polite glass toast. Our yards became a single sentence with a comma between them. The comma chimed in breezes. Teenagers would make out under this arch in a different life. In this one, we drank iced tea and argued about store-bought versus fresh pesto like it mattered. We made it official with a garden treaty because my building had turned me into a miniature mayor. Article 1. Water like a person, not like a flood. Article 2. Taste tests required when leaves smell like pizza. Article 3. Weeding is a vibe and a community service. Article 4. Anyone reading the treaty must add a drawing. The treaty lives in a plastic sleeve on the fence, so it doesn't perish in rain. The neighbor drew a basil leaf that looked like a heart. I drew a dangerously realistic tomato, and then apologized to the tomato when it turned out bad. The fence started getting gifts. Someone hung a tiny birdhouse painted like an ice cream truck. Someone else tied ribbons that flickered in the light. The ribbons made the wind look like it had a costume. A kid from next door taped a crayon drawing of our fence, where stick figure me and stick figure neighbor waved with 6 fingers each. We left the drawing until the edges browned, and then tucked it into a page protector, because archivist instincts die slow. One evening, we ate pasta at a table we dragged right up to the line. Half the plates on their side, half on mine. We passed the bowl back and forth over the slats like a friendly smuggling ring. The sunset tried its best and succeeded. The arch held a crescent moon like jewelry. Someone played music low. A friend stopped by with a 6-pack and said, "What's this?" And we said the border, like we were in a movie. We were in a movie. Budget, 0. Production design, premium. A few days later, a storm tested us. Wind threw a tantrum. Rain slapped sideways. The braces did their job like they'd been waiting to prove themselves. The arch creaked, but didn't bail. A single marigold fell over and got up again like a boxer. The morning after, we surveyed the kingdom. Fence, intact. Planter, soggy, but proud. B. Buffett, open, now accepting soggier patrons. We brought out towels like we were drying off a dog and patted the wood dry. After the storm, the smell of wet fence is a poem that never gets old. The liminal zone guy returned to inspect before noon like a cartoon tax collector who subsists on measuring things. He found nothing to measure. He stood at the arch and listened to the chime because even auditors have ears. He said, "The arch is nice." I said, "Binding." We both laughed finally. He asked for basil sometimes after that, and we handed it over with ceremony, like a king granting a boon. We wrote, "Former liminal zone antagonist redeemed via pesto" in the treaty margins and circled it with a highlighter. We threw a microfair one Saturday. 4 neighbors, 2 pies, a card table, and a banner that read, "Team Fence" in letters we cut from a cereal box because we refused to be normal about anything now. People stopped on the sidewalk and asked what Team Fence was. I said, "It's a joke that grew legs." We gave out basil sprigs and told people to rub the leaves and smell their thumbs. Someone brought lemonade. Someone else brought a guitar that only knew 4 chords but played them like they mattered. The bees filed a noise complaint by continuing to bee. A kid sold tickets drawn on paper for 1 leaf each and then refused to collect leaves because he decided his job was ticket chief, not leaf collector. One late afternoon, I found my neighbor sitting at the arch, head in hands, breathing shallow. Bad day. They didn't say it. The shoulders said it. I sat on my side and didn't talk for 5 minutes. Just listened to the chime count the wind. Then I said, "Want to rip out weeds with me like enemies?" They nodded. We went to war with plants that did not pay rent. We pulled and cursed quietly, and then laughed, and then didn't. At the end, we had a pile that looked like we'd harmed a small green monster. The yard looked cleaner, and their face did too. It's wild how ripping something small out of the earth can help you not rip your whole life out at the root. Weird therapy. Dirt under nails. 10 out of 10. We had one fence troll moment because the internet invented that energy, and now it leaks into real life. Someone passing by shouted, "Ugly fence," like they were doing a drive-by comment section. The neighbor shouted back, "We love her," and I shouted, "Her name is Gertie," and the heckler laughed so hard they tripped on their own bike, which is comedic justice, and also we checked if they were okay because we're not monsters. They waved us off, and shouted, "Sorry, Gertie," which is how our fence got her government name at last. Small wildness. We hosted a seed swap at the line. Mason jars with labels and tape. Someone brought moonflower seeds like they were rare jewels. Someone else brought 3 kinds of mint, and we made them write "Will Escape" in skull letters on the jar, because Mint is a prison break artist. We traded like dragons with less hoarding. The arch grabbed the late light and made it into a doorway to somewhere calmer. Everyone stepped through, even if they rolled their eyes first. We kept the watering schedule, and it kept us. Even days me. Odd days them. On day 7 of a heat wave, I forgot. I woke at midnight like my name had been called by a plant. I went outside in pajama shorts and watered by phone light like I was doing a secret mission for lettuce. The neighbor texted, "Mission accomplished," from their window with a thumbs up crack. I replied with a picture of wet dirt and the caption, "Alive." We bumped phone screens like we were toasting. Yes, that's cringe. Yes, it made me grin in the dark like a weirdo, which is my base setting. And yeah, the bold move nobody asked for. Chalk lines on the sidewalk. We drew a tiny map of our 2 yards, and the fence and the arch, and the planter, and labeled everything like a museum floor. You are here. Bees are here. Advice is here. Kindness here. It rained, and the map melted into pastel rivers, and somehow the leftover blur looked even better. The kid from next door added a dragon in blue that guarded the basil. We left it. The dragon keeps late hours. I see him when the porch light slips. I thought a fence was a wall. Turns out ours is a table, a shelf, a stage, a place to hang a wind chime, and a treaty, and a crayon drawing that will break your heart, because it's so sure we belong to each other. The border became a conversation instead of a line. We still argue sometimes about tomatoes stealing water from basil, about whether the wind chime is too cheerful on sleepy mornings, about how high to trim the vines so they don't bully the arch into a goth phase. But we argue like people who share a planter, gently, with snacks. Tiny garden beats loud ego every time. This was supposed to be a fence story, and it turned into a neighbor story. The best kind of mission creep. Relax your jaw again. The night is doing its thing. If your eyes are heavy, let the chime keep watch. If you're awake, sip water, fix a pillow, and I'll keep the world quiet while you drift. The car had a name because it earned one. Comet. Not fast, not new. Just stubborn in a cute way. Hatchback with a dent like a dimple. Shared between 2 roommates who share nothing else on schedule. I'm a night person. She's a morning person. Comet lives in a street spot that moves every day like the city is playing chess with us. We taped a paper by the door that said, "Comet boarding pass," like we were an airline powered by granola bars and vibes. First mistake was small and loud. She said she'd be back by 6. I had a gig at 7. She texted at 6:30. 5 mines. 5 mins is a myth parents tell. I ordered a cheap ride like I was confessing to a priest. The ride smelled like victory and french fries. I made the gig. I also made a face when she skidded in at 6:54 with Comet wheezing like a dragon with allergies. She said, "Traffic." I said, "I get it." I also said, "We need rules before feelings come in here with a bat." We sat at the kitchen table and wrote a charter like 2 pirates who got therapy. Rule 1. Write your trip on the calendar before you take it. Rule 2. Keys live on the hook. No exceptions. Even if your soul wants to pocket them like a squirrel. Rule 3. If you're late, you text when you realize you're late, not when shame stops choking you. Rule 4. Late return, wash the windshield. It's silly. It also works. Rule 5. If you bring Comet home below a quarter tank, you pay the gas jar a small tax and put actual gas in the car. Rule 6. Whoever borrows Comet for the longest trip checks tire pressure on Sunday with the cheap gauge that looks like a crayon. We built a shrine for the key, a little wooden plaque that says Key lives here, with a doodled house and a smiley like a landlord that isn't a jerk. We put a hook so shiny it bullied the key into behaving. We drew a chalk box under it. If the key touches anything but the hook, the chalk box says, "Nope." Did we go too far? Yes. Did it work? Also, yes. Touch the hook. Take a breath. Your brain gets trained like a golden retriever and starts bringing you the keys without being asked. Week 1 of the charter felt like a sitcom where the jokes land. She wrote 6:30 a.m. gym grocery run and drew a little dumbbell with spaghetti next to it. I wrote 8 p.m. friends show neon tea. Comet did both and didn't complain because Comet is a people pleaser. We left gas receipts on the fridge with little notes. Topped off. Sorry for the crumbs. Washed windshield. Miraculously didn't break wiper. Praise me. We built a wall of proof that we were not villains. We messed up. Of course we did. I left the key in my tote bag and went to bed like a raccoon with treasure. She woke at 6 to an empty hook and rage lit by the sun. She did not kick my door in. She slid a sticky note under it that said key and a small drawing of a screaming ghost. I woke, sprinted, apologized so fast, I made up new words and handed her the key like a medal. I washed the windshield twice. I paid the gas jar and also the pain in the butt jar we invented on the spot with €3 and a gummy bear. The gummy bear melted later. It was a metaphor. We added tech because tech likes to feel helpful. A tile on the key. A shared calendar on the phone so it pings us in 2 tones. Hers is a bright ding. Mine is a chill bloop. The key tile sang once when it fell behind the couch, and we both knelt in prayer to the gods of lost things. We rescued it with a coat hanger like surgeons. Comet watched from the curb, bored. We introduced carcord, but nice. 5 minutes every Sunday evening with tea. I know, we're ridiculous. Did Comet make you mad? Did you leave a smell in Comet? Do we need to buy a cheap trash bag so Comet doesn't become a museum of cups? There was one time I said, "What died in here?" And she said, "Broccoli." And we both sat quietly with that for a beat. We laughed because comedy is tragedy plus time, and also a bag for vegetable crimes. We put a mini trash bin in the bag. It changed our lives by 9%. We made silent pickup protocol. If I'm at the curb waiting and she pulls up, door unlock. No recap, no life story. Just in, seatbelt, handoff, thumbs up. Later, we text the context if we want. It turns out the part that spikes your blood is the debrief you didn't ask for at Volume 8. Cut that and your nervous system claps. We saved those debriefs for later like desserts. Tell me your traffic saga when I'm not 2 minutes from a panic attack. We became smarter than our adrenaline. We tested the charter on a road trip because nothing stress tests a system like snacks in a moving box. 3 hours to see a friend who lives near a lake that has the nerves of a saint. We packed snacks like we were going to war with hunger. We alternated playlists, her pop bops, my lo-fi haze. When the siren song of "Let's Talk About Politics" came on the radio, we did the best rule ever invented by tired people. We said, "Another time." We pointed at a cow and gave it a backstory. We stopped at a gas station with vibes from 1999 and bought a map we didn't need because paper makes you feel capable. Halfway back, Comet coughed. Engine light did its tiny orange panic. We pulled over like adults. I whispered, "Not today, pal," to the dashboard, like I was consoling a friend. She pulled up the manual. We looked like we knew what we were doing. We did not. We did know to sit, breathe, and call the number in the glove box. The voice on the line was calm. She said, "Turn the cap until it clicks 3 times. We did the clicks. Comet forgave us, and the light chilled out. We put "Cap clicks matter" on the charter because we like to document miracles. The biggest fight we dodged started as a spark. She took Comet for a big grocery day and came back on fumes. I had a last-minute pickup for a friend. and saw the quarter tank blinking like a needy Tamagotchi. I texted "Hey quarter" with a clown emoji because I was trying to be funny and it landed like a grenade. She wrote back, "I had to choose between gas and the milk we needed. Sorry." I froze. I deleted 3 replies that were jokes with knives in them. I called instead. We did the adult thing, where you say the real sentence without any seasoning. I felt stuck when the tank was low. I felt small at the store. Can we do the jar differently so it's not shame tax? It's help fund. We changed it. Gas jar became gas fund. We put a budget there on purpose and stopped treating it like a swear jar. The language swap took the sting out. Words aren't everything. They are a lot. We ran drills because we are secretly drama nerds. What do you do if the street sweeper signs ambush you? What do you do if a tow truck appears like a ferry, but expensive? Who calls? Who moves? Where's the spare? Where's the registration? Where's the number you call when your brain has left the chat? We taped a tiny in case of dumb card by the visor with all the answers, so future us didn't have to invent memory while sweating. I wrote "breathe" next to the first number and drew a dot. Look at the dot, inhale, exhale, call. I'm not going to pretend we became saints. We still left sweaters in the back. She still played the one song that sounds like a candy factory at 8 a.m. Sometimes. I still drove like a grandma when I was anxious and made her late twice. We wrote receipts for those too. Not money, effort. I owe you 1 gas stop next time we're low. I'll take the early commute tomorrow so you can sleep. The ledger stayed balanced because we cared more about the team than the scoreboard. That sounds corny. It is. It also works. We turned the calendar into art. Color-coded blocks, tiny icons, a coffee cup for early appointments, a little moon for night runs. When our schedules clashed in a way that made the calendar look like Tetris, we didn't escalate. We asked our neighbor if we could borrow her bike for one day. We paid in cookies and plant cuttings. We learned that sharing makes you neighbor rich. The wildest thing Comet did for us was make us talk when we wanted to avoid each other. Cars are blunt. You need it or you don't. You say so or you regret it. There's no moral victory for suffering in silence while staring at a metal object with wheels. We practice saying, "I need Comet at 6," and "Can you take the bus today? I'll swap you tomorrow," and "Are we okay?" And because we practiced it with steel and gasoline, we got better at it with feelings. Feelings are more expensive. The muscle still flexes the same. Okay, safety note, because it matters more than cute rules. If you're furious, do not drive. Sit. Drink water. Ask for 10 minutes. Walk around the block. Text, "I'm not safe to drive yet." Your timeline will survive. Your life is not a schedule with a gun. One evening, we parked Comet on the top of the hill. Not on purpose. Last spot. Heavy bags. We stood there and looked at the sky, doing its pink thing. She said, "You ever think we named it Comet? And then it turned us into a little orbit." I said, "Wow, okay, poet." She said, "Shut up." We laughed. We walked down to the apartment without arguing about who forgot to turn the wheel toward the curb, because we both did. We grabbed the key from the hook, clicked it into place, and listened to the tiny sound of doing it right. It's basic. It's also delicious. That felt clean, like sweeping a room you actually live in. Small win, no fireworks. Breathe once. Maybe sip water. We'll make one last call together, and it won't be dramatic. It'll just be good. I boiled water because that's what I do when I'm not sure what to do. Kettle on. Window open a crack, because fresh air lies to your brain, and your brain believes it. His mom asked to talk, and I said yes, with a pause big enough for me to find the center of me and bring it to the phone. The engagement was off. The ring lived in a box like a sleeping coin. The binder of swatches lived in a closet behind a suitcase. The air in the apartment knew all of this and still felt heavy. I put 2 mugs on the table like I was hosting a ghost. She called right on the minute, like a person who respects a clock. I answered like a person who respects my own heartbeat. Her voice was careful. It had calluses. She said my name the way you do when you're carrying a tray and trying not to spill. I said hello like a landing strip. There was a second where the line hummed and I heard my own breath and a neighbor's laugh down the hall and a car hiss past on wet pavement. Then she said, I pushed too hard, like dropping the heaviest box first. We both exhaled like the room let us. I told her the truth that had been sitting in my throat. I said we all pushed. Not to equalize blame, but to put the weight down in a circle, instead of pointing at one person who did a lot of party planning with the word vision taped to it. She said, I wanted to give you what I didn't have, and then I turned you into a project. I said, I wanted to give us what we actually wanted, and then I started keeping score. We were just 2 people realizing we'd turned love into a group assignment with grading rubrics. Terrible class. Drop it. We didn't do the autopsy for sport. We touched the facts and didn't lick the knives. The doves. The church group on the guest list. The pre-approved vows like a sitcom bit that stops being funny when it's your life. She said, my mother ran my wedding like an airport. I thought if I ran yours like a garden, it would feel softer. I told her I hated airports, and I like gardens, and I also like walking through a gate alone without someone stamping my forehead with approval. She laughed in a way that wasn't mean. She said, you made us look at our roots. It wasn't comfortable. I said, me either. We did the tiny courtesies that sound petty until you don't have them. I thanked her for the binder, even though the binder made me want to do a dramatic feint on a chaise I don't own. She thanked me for how I told the truth instead of ghosting the family and disappearing like a plot hole. I said I kept her number because I hoped we could be people to each other rather than opposing legal teams. She said, I hope your porch light is always on. I wrote that down because it was pretty, and because I wanted to remember that she knew words could be soft and not just sharp. I didn't promise a future I can't hold. She didn't ask for one. We agreed on practicals, like we were signing a treaty with paper hearts in the margins. Deposits returned where possible. A few sunk costs, eaten like stale cookies. Gift returns handled quietly. I said I'd drop the ring with him when he was ready. Not at her house, like a baton in a relay she didn't sign up for. She said she'd handle calling the aunt who still thinks doves are free because they come from outside, don't they? We snorted. We let ourselves be dumb together for 1 minute because the serious parts needed a chaperone. Then she said a thing I didn't expect, and it turned my brain gentle. I didn't raise him to be quiet, she said. I taught him to pick his battles. I didn't realize I made him think love was a battle he shouldn't pick. I didn't rescue her from that sentence. I set it down next to mine. I said, I didn't learn boundaries until mine started biting me. I used them like weapons first. I'm learning to use them like fences with gates. We got smarter in slow motion on opposite ends of a phone line, which is the least exciting montage in cinema and the best thing for actual humans. I made tea while we talked. I stirred honey like a small orchestra. I described the sound of the rain on the window, because small weather reports are intimacy without demands. She described the light in her kitchen at 5, and how it hits the little plant on the sill that refuses to die. She asked if I wanted a recipe for the chicken she makes when she needs the kitchen to smell like she's okay. I said yes. I wrote it down like I was copying a family spell. Salt, lemon, a stubborn roast at a low temp. Patience like an ingredient. I told her the playlist I made the night we ended things has no string quartet. She said, good. We talked about grief like it wasn't a dragon, just a person sitting with us, because that's what this is. Not a villain to be smited, not a problem to solve. a roommate for a while who does their dishes eventually. She said they'd keep some of my photos on the mantle because I was here and it happened, and pretending otherwise makes the room feel creepy. I said I'd keep the Polaroid of the three of us at the park, the one where he looks like he's about to laugh, and she's mid-eye roll, and I'm wearing a stupid hat, because it makes me feel like we weren't lying. We weren't. We were trying. Trying earns you soft corners later if you let it. I wrote her a list on the back of the chicken recipe. The things I liked when I met her. The scarf she wears that looks like it figured out how to be a sunset without being annoying. The way she puts snacks in a bowl, like she's presenting them to royalty, even if the royalty is just us and socks. The way she says, "What's the plan?" like plans are pets, and she's checking that you feed them. I read the list to her because compliments in a time of correction feel like water in a desert. She asked me to read the scarf line again. I did. We cried like humans with well-functioning ducts. Not a flood. Enough. We set two things. 1. No surprise pop-ins later. We're adults, not sitcom characters. 2. If we ever see each other in the wild, we wave, we smile, we do the most neutral version of small talk, and we keep moving. Permissions make the future less scary. I don't want my grocery trip turning into a therapy session by the rotisserie chickens. She doesn't want to plan ambushes at farmers markets with heirloom tomatoes as weapons. Deal. He texted me later. Not a script. A thanks. I said, "We did the brave thing." He said, "We did the right thing." Both can be true. I left the ring in the box and the box on his porch under the light. I took a picture and sent it to say, "It's there." He sent back a checkmark emoji and a picture of the sky. I pretended it was the same sky we were both under, because that makes everything less sharp by half. 2 days after the call, an envelope arrived. Real stamp. Her handwriting that looks like it sits up straight. Inside, the chicken recipe again, but this time on a card with little lemons printed in the corners and a line at the bottom. From one stubborn woman to another. I taped it inside a cupboard where I hide the spices and the good chocolate. I cooked it on a day I needed the kitchen to tell me it was trustworthy. I sent her a picture of the pan and a thumbs up. She sent back a heart and a proud, which is a word I didn't know could fit that way from her. I know how the internet wants this story to go. Epic confrontation. Dramatic monologue. Storming out in heels that stab the floor. I don't need that for my reel. I need afternoons where the air doesn't have to carry a speech. I need mornings where my phone doesn't feel like a courtroom in my hand. I need nights where a call is just a call and not a battle disguised as logistics. That's what we built on the phone. Not a bridge. We'll drive a lot. More like a footpath that exists so nobody has to machete through the jungle if they don't want to. We didn't promise to be family. We promised to be civil. We promised to respect the ghost of what almost happened without inviting it to dinner. We promised to let time do the weird, slow work where it sands the sharpest edges. Time loves a patient person. I'm practicing. I label my jars. I return the carts. I fold my laundry and don't make it a metaphor. I hang wind chimes where I want to hear them. I walk past the wedding magazines at the grocery store, and they don't bring a binder to mind. They bring lemons and roast chicken and the idea that grown-ups can end a thing without tearing the whole town down. That set the backpack down without tossing it. We breathe like we mean it. If you're drifting, good. Let the quiet do its job. If you're awake, I'll keep the rain low and the lanterns warm. We'll leave the line open for happier